First talk is going to be a true story of fire in the OR. Actually occurred here in a hospital here in Texas that Dr. Bhatia happened to be operating in at the same time. He's got a great story. And it's a great story, but it brings up a lot of interesting points, especially when you have no idea what's happening and you have a patient who is under general anesthesia and needing bypass surgery. And then Debbie Adams has, as I mentioned earlier, she's currently on the ethics committee for AMSECT, and she's done a lot of work in this matter for many years. And I think that we all face from time to time, I think maybe a better way to say it, ethical concerns, and it cannot necessarily be something dramatic like the sky is falling or the building's burning down, but it can be, what do we do when we have a colleague who maybe shouldn't be there? I mean, I think there's a lot of things that get wrapped into this. So, Dr. Bhatia, you got a story to tell us. Yeah. Tell us a story.
Well, I'll start by saying that we've all had our scenarios and situations where we've been in a very difficult case and we feel like the building's burning down around us. And in this situation, it really was burning down. We were at Tomball Hospital on a Saturday morning, and the patient was brought in for surgery, and it was just a bypass, open heart surgery. And we're in doing the surgery, and all of a sudden, the most horrific smells came through the vent system of the operating room. Oh my goodness. And it was the point where we were having trouble breathing ourselves, even with the mask on. And then the whole OR filled up with smoke. And so we have now got a patient that his chest is open, the mammary is down, and the vein was out of the leg, and the patient's clearly under anesthesia. We weren't on pump because we intended not to go on pump that day. But we could hardly see through the operating room. It was that smoky and very dangerous, really. Not only for the patient, but for us as the operating team, to not even be able to breathe. It was very caustic. You could feel it with every breath you took. Mm-hmm. So in the meantime, we're trying to figure out how to, not only take care of ourselves, but take care of a patient who has the chest open and is under anesthesia and obviously has no idea what's going on. And you're thinking very quickly of what are our alternatives and how do we get out of there? Is there a nearby hospital that can accommodate us? Nowadays with bringing patients into the hospital, there's so much paperwork to fill out and, all the pre-registration and all the things that you have to do. And in this instance, we were going to have to literally put this patient in the back of an ambulance, but keep him under anesthesia and take him to an operating room that was being made ready. And so I was on the phone with the nearby hospital who basically said, yeah, bring him. Whatever we need to do, we'll take care of it afterwards, but bring him over. And we had the ambulance ready, and about that time, it seemed that the fire department was able to get things under control, and it started feeling better in the operating room as far as breathing. Smoke cleared up, and I just do remember going out there and asking one of the firemen if the fire was out, and he looked at me and said, does it look like it's out? And I was like, listen, we're just trying to figure out, if we need to make a move here because we have a patient under anesthesia. Fortunately, that was the only surgery that was going on that Saturday. And we did have an out if we needed it, but we were able to clear out smoke from the operating room, do the surgery on the patient, and finish safely. But I think that the things that came up very quickly because this is the first time I've been in an operating room that's caught fire, and it wasn't the operating room per se. It was right outside of the operating room. And if you play that clip or play it again, you can see how intense the fire was.
It's
when
frightening.
it was going on. That operating room is right in that building, just in front of the flames, and so much so you could see that from the outside of the OR. So to my surprise, the CEO told me on Monday that fire occurred, and underneath that fire, which did not fortunately catch fire, was 1,000 gallons of diesel fuel.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
Had that caught on fire, it probably would have exploded and we'd all been dead.
Oh
It
God.
literally was insulated enough that it did not catch fire. But 1,000 gallons of diesel fuel that could have just destroyed the hospital and everybody in it. So,
Now, when this was happening, when the room started filling with smoke, you could smell it. Think about how horrible that must have been for them. I mean, it was hurting you. It was painful for you. Imagine all those people, those firemen on 9/11 and those first responders and the people that were just there that survived, how much they suffered. But in the operating room, you didn't know to what extent this was.
well, what happened first was, before the smoke, was this, I don't know how to describe it, a very powerful, intense smell that you smell with an electrical fire, kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kept getting worse and worse. And then the smoke came, because this fire was right outside of the operating room, and there was a window separating that fire from the OR itself. I think you've probably seen that window.
I know which one you're talking about.
And so you could see the fire, and you could certainly smell the noxious gas or whatever that was occurring there. But they were able to get out under control fast enough that we were to the point where literally skin sutures were being placed to close, just the external skin. We didn't close anything else. And then they were able to get it under control, where we just said, okay, we'll stay and finish the surgery here.
Wow.
So you did the surgery there.
We ended up staying
Wow.
after they got the fire under control.
It was an electrical fire?
It was. You can see they were out there. People
Wait,
were out there.
look at this. Look at the ground here in a second.
With all those tanks.
Yeah.
But the reason that those were all used is because those were hospital staff and security that were attending to this before the actual fire department made it. And you can see the fire trucks in the back. But apparently behind there or beneath there is a tank that held 1,000 gallons of diesel fuel that fortunately did not catch fire. That would have just been devastating. It was bad enough that this happened, but I'm not sure that that would have been survivable for anybody. And in the meantime, they were also evacuating the intensive care unit, which is nearby, because they too could smell the smoke and the noxious fumes that were coming in. Everybody mobilized very quickly, fortunately, and averted disaster.
Mm-hmm. Now, the operating room where you were in, was it 2 or 3? Do you remember?
2.
There are no windows in that room.
Correct. That's correct.
And there is only
one way out.
And one way in and out.
Right.
Had that fire been just on the other side of that door, they were in trouble.
We all would have been. And, we talk about how even smoking a cigarette in an operating room is so dangerous because of all of the oxygen and the gases that run through the tubings that
we used to.
I know.
We used to. I did.
I know.
I have.
Yeah. But the point is that it's dangerous, and it alone can ignite an internal fire. And yet we had all of this going on with all those gases that were already, flowing through the tubings that we had in the operating room itself. So yeah, we would have been in deep trouble.
Did anybody worry? I'm sorry. Did anybody worry that the gas lines coming in were contaminated? That you had a patient under general anesthesia?
No, because I think those were directly attached to nitrogen oxygen tanks that are
Tanks.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a direct line.
Aren't we taught to turn those off? Like if there's fire? I mean, at what point had you had a conversation in there? At what
we
point we were
talked
going
about
to?
it, but
It's like there were conversations about. Okay,
yes, except we had a patient under anesthesia and that needed those gases.
Yeah,
so.
and exactly. It's like at what point do you say, okay, save the crew?
Yeah. Nobody really spoke like that. It never really got to that point. I think we were more concerned about the patient and trying to figure out how to, evacuate in a safe manner. Fortunately, I was able to get a hold of the director of the operating room and the administrator on call at the nearby hospital, who said, "Yeah, just bring them if we need to. Bring them out."
Yeah, I just like training with Life Flight, fly specialty crews, and it's humbling, but we're taught to egress the crew first. So if we have a problem, we're told that we're supposed to leave the patient and all meet and then go back and get the patient, which is totally foreign to everything in your body if you're a healthcare provider. And it's that's why I was, so that didn't happen. Or you guys were planning how to get the patient out of the room.
Yeah, we just immediately went into the mode of let's get out of here as a team. To my knowledge, I don't think we've ever had any fire training per se. They seem to have training for everything else these days, but nobody's really ever said, like what you said, is that, run basically and get out of there and save yourself first. But I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is or was, but at that particular moment, we felt like we had at least a few minutes to pack up and get out of there. And I think had we not had another place we could have gone to, maybe we would have been, in a different mindset. But again, having had 20 years of experience up in these hospitals and having, a lot of these guys' direct cell numbers was very helpful, rather than trying to go through an operator or a paging system or whatever. So it worked out.
I think for the online audience, I'd like to share this because I didn't in the beginning. You were trained by Charlie Reed, of course,
yes,
the director of the first official school of perfusion in the world.
The godfather.
Yes. So Deborah was trained by Charlie, and Dr. Bhatia operated on Charlie. So they both know Charlie.
Yes, and Charlie told us, which as a young lady training in perfusion, which
You're
I was
still
talking
young.
to, yes, I am. Well, I was talking to Dr. Bhatia about this, that Charlie told us to, run like heck. And
No, you can curse. You
no,
can say
I'm
run
not
like
going to
that.
curse because
Charlie
I'm not,
didn't say that.
No,
You're
he didn't.
Quoting him.
He used a different word, okay? And it was a different word. And it's shocking because that's not what you think somebody's going to say when you ask, oh, what if, there's a fire or something like that? And he basically was like, anesthesia's going to anesthetize the patient and you're going to get the blankety blank out of there. And that's it. And Charlie was very blunt, and I mean, you knew where you stood with him, and it was profound. And I remember that today. And though I don't, when you're in that situation, I've never been in that situation. Can you really do that? I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah.
I know Sharon couldn't do that. We would figure out a way to get out of there, but if you're on pump, it's like.
Yeah,
that changes the whole thing.
Yeah,
it's scary.
How did you pick Sharon out of that huge studio audience?
Because
that
Sharon and I.
But how did you even see her in that huge studio audience?
Well, because I can feel her presence.
She stands right out. I'll tell you what I think was so remarkable about this circumstance is listening to you talk and listening to your evolution of thought, listening to you and what you say, Charlie said, taking and that it would be extremely hard for you to actually follow that advice, and how you handled the actual situation. It would have only taken, not necessarily an explosion that would have just killed you all instantly. All it would have taken is a breach in that tank, a flow of diesel into that area. You all would have been trapped and you all would have burned to death. There's no question about it in my mind. I know the layout of that hospital. You had no way out whatsoever. So the decision that you made to assess it and go, okay, we're just going to sit tight and we're going to figure out what to do, is, I think, an inherent humanistic trait. But that decision could very well have been your demise. Had you, because you have the situation, had you gone, everybody get out, let's just put patient to sleep and haul ass, and you just took off, and that would have occurred, would have lost the patient, there's no question about it, but y'all would have lived. That waiting, the very thing that we do because we have this connection to humanity, would have been your death. And it was just, it could have gone either way. This was a serious fire. This was not just a joke.
No, very serious. I need to clarify. We weren't sitting and waiting. We were making active decisions by the second, but to the point where we were getting ready to put stitches in the skin and close and go.
But you were trying to save the patient.
Well,
had you just abandoned the patient and just taken off, whether it's 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, it's only that one last second.
That's right.
That makes the difference between living and dying.
You're right.
I'm not saying you were just lollygagging in there. I didn't mean to imply that. But every second you took to try to extract the patient from the circumstance was a minute potentially that you're closer to dying.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I do, but I've never been in that situation. I just think that in that moment, I don't think I would have been thinking about what was going to happen to self. And obviously, then there was a cardiothoracic surgeon in the room that was controlling the energy and the culture and the environment of that room, so that we were all following directive in a calm way. Yeah. And I think that's what makes a difference.
You have to have a leader.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's when, and we say, oh, there's not captain of the ship, but you have to, and to have that trust with, your surgeon, and that he has or she has and that's why even surgeons that you say, okay, whatever, I mean, when they have to go into that mode that quickly and decide, I'm making life and death decisions for that patient and for this team, I mean, it's humbling. And, that's why it's a privilege to be in this field, this profession. But I think in that particular situation, it was because the surgeon and with his team had a plan, and they came up with that plan like that. Mm-hmm. And, and then you deal with the consequence of it. And thankfully, angels were there and they had a successful outcome. But, his plan, he wasn't just sitting there, oh my goodness, I just think about what if it were 20 years ago and we didn't have cell phones, or, we were in Monroe or somewhere where there isn't another place to go. I mean, it's just scary.
I think you react based on the technology that you have at your fingertips. And so all of this, even though the story took longer to tell, happened within probably 5 minutes, I'd say. And, we were so close to just packing and going with the patient and the whole team over to the hospital down the street. And thank goodness they were very welcoming to us, you know, as far as.
I would imagine they would be.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine anybody
Right.
who wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Certainly, you know.
Well, you always worry and wonder with medical legal issues these days. It's, you know, are we crossing
I do think,
borders of
yeah, maybe
you know,
so.
issues that might come up in a later time. There's still not been any fire training since that, and there probably should be for the team and for in case a scenario like this ever happens again.
Hmm. Well, you know, and I appreciate both of you so very much. Rodell, I don't know what your impression
No, I
is.
mean,
but
I have to applaud the fortitude because, you know, you easily could have said like, hey, we all have to get out of here. And that changed the mindset of that whole team.
but I don't think that would have been a bad decision.
No, I'm not saying
I don't
that.
think that
but
would have been the wrong decision.
The wrong decision, right decision. Patient came out fine.
It worked out.
It worked out. It did work out.
It worked out, but I don't
it's just
think
the decision making that happened, and it worked out.
this is what would have happened. Okay, so the way it worked out, serendipity. Okay, just it all worked the way it worked. Angels, good decision making, good team cohesion, all of those things. Having somebody who took command, whomever that person is. I don't care what the person's job is. It could be the housekeeper. If they happen to be the one that has the best command presence and is making the decisions, somebody has to be in charge. Otherwise, the ship sinks in the middle of the ocean. I think we all agree with that. You have paralysis by analysis otherwise. But had the team had more injury, it would have been Monday morning quarterbacked as to the decision to not leave was wrong. If the team would have just run out and anything would have happened to the patient, then it would have been wrong.
Right.
So I don't think there really is a right answer here. I think that's the problem, is that no matter what you do, you run the risk of having to wait to the outcome before anybody is ever going to give you the benefit of the doubt as to making the right or wrong decision. I've said it many times. It's why I don't go where you go. I applaud you, and I'm so proud of the fact that you go to Iraq and these other Afghanistan, these places that are hotbeds for terrorism and all this kind of thing. I could never make it in special forces because if I got captured, they're not going to have to bring out any of the implements of torture. I'm telling them everything they want to know. So it disqualifies them. Okay. Had this happened with me, no one would have had to tell me to leave. I would have been gone. If I can't carry you, then sorry. Patient, good luck. I wish you the best. I'm out the door. That's it. Maybe I wouldn't have quite done that. I'd have picked him up so that his heart maybe didn't flop out. I'd try to hold it this way, but I'd have gotten out of there pretty quick. I wouldn't have waited. Not with a fire. A fire? I'm not burning. I'm not burning. No.
Yeah, but you would have waited a little.
Maybe.
Get a top-rated some smoke.
You do what your surgeon tells you.
Ooh.
He doesn't use the pump. I don't have to listen.
Okay, what can you
Yes. I'd have used him as a heat shield.
Oh boy.
You'd have done it for me. You'd have sacrificed yourself for me.
Oh yes.
Okay.